Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Please be seated. Good morning. On this Veterans Day, we salute our veterans and extend our gratitude for their service. They are our relatives, friends, neighbors, and coworkers. These individuals committed to a cause larger than their own and accepted the challenges to defend our nation. Welcome veterans, their families, and honored guests to North Cobb High School Veterans Day commemoration. Now is America the Beautiful by the Women's and Men's Advanced Chorus. conducted by Ms. Holly Patella. Stars and Stripes Forever by the Chamber Orchestra, conducted by Dr. Paula Kay. At this time, Commander Joel Reeves will introduce our guest speaker.
Good morning. Each year this time, I get to take part in this ceremony. This ceremony that means a lot to me personally. It's my pleasure to introduce a fellow officer. Even though he wears Coast Guard blue, he's a shipmate and he's a friend. I'm going to read a few lines from his biography, and then we'll get on with hearing Captain Polk. Captain Polk enlisted in the Coast Guard Reserve in August 1969 in Louisville, Kentucky. He completed basic training at Cape May, New Jersey, and Port Signalman A School at Yorktown, Virginia. From 1970 to 1981, while assigned to Coast Guard units in Nashville, in Louisville, Captain Polk advanced to Port Securityman First Class, working in training and boating safety, crewing a 17-foot patrol boat, and performing additional duties assigned. Captain Polk went back to school. He earned a BS degree in 1976 from Western Kentucky University and received his direct commission as an ensign in the United States Coast Guard in 1981. Captain Polk served at various Coast Guard commands. His final deployment was a 9-month Title X wartime activation at the Coast Guard Atlantic Area Command in Portsmouth, Virginia. His military awards include the the Meritorious Service Medal, 3 Coast Guard Commendation Medals, 2 Coast Guard Achievement Medals, the Commandant's Letter of Commendation, a Presidential Unit Citation, and the Armed Forces Reserve Medal. Captain Polk completed over 40 years of service. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present a fellow officer and a friend, Captain Charles E. Polk.
Good morning, all. Principal Horton, assistant principals, administrative support staff members of this school, Commander Reeves, First Sergeant Dickerson, who is also from Louisville, Kentucky, students, Cadet Corps, American Legion Post 304, Kennesaw Ackworth, and all the veterans here today. Greetings, and thanks so much for having me this morning. You know, when Commander Reeves invited me to speak here today, I thought of the many, many stories I could be telling you, and anyone who knows Chuck Polk knows he can tell stories. But these would be to drive home the very meaning of Veterans Day. To each of you in this auditorium, to successfully fill each of you with a true appreciation for the sacrifices of our military members over the 239 years since the founding of this great nation in 1776. Hundreds of thousands of them who gave the ultimate sacrifice, their lives, that you might enjoy the many liberties that define your American world today. Veterans like Timothy O'Keefe, United States Marine Corps, who was killed on April the 20th, 1968. Brian Jones of the U.S. Navy, April 19th, 1989. All graduates of North Cobb. Aaron Reeves of the United States Navy, July 28th of 2008. Sean McCloskey, United States Army, September 16th of 2009. Jonathan Walsh, United States Army, April 22nd, 2012. Reaching back, Doug Gray, NCHS class of 1978, who was killed in a military aircraft accident. Or Airman First Class, United States Air Force, NCHS class of 2000, who gave his life on the Balad airfield in Iraq on April the 10th, 2004. Yet there are many veterans who have survived our wars and conflicts through the centuries, and they have lived to tell their stories, both great and small, many of whom you have had the privilege to hear in your lives. Our veterans have come from all walks of life, all races, creeds, religions, and persuasions. They have served in one or more of the 5 branches of our armed forces: our Army, our Marine Corps, our Navy, our Air Force, and yes, even our Coast Guard. So I decided, having come from a family rooted in both Navy and Coast Guard tradition, and having served myself for so long in our Coast Guard, to share with you a few words that might help you understand what most Americans don't know, and most of you cannot fully appreciate: the fact that your U.S. Coast Guard has protected not only our shores here, but around the world. That's a surprise to many. That it has continuously served its nation in every armed conflict and war since the U.S. has been involved since its founding in 1790, when our predecessor, the Revenue Marine, was created. That in fact your Coast Guard, whose 38,000 active duty sailors could fit within the New York City Police Department, in fact cover a multitude of civilian and military missions in places both here in the United States and across the globe. Did you know, for instance, that the Coast Guard has had cutters that have served continuously alongside our military fellow joint services in the Persian Gulf since 1990? That's 25 years now, before the starts of Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. That during the Vietnam War, our cutters served in Operation Market Time up and down the Vietnamese coast and up its many rivers during that war. That we train navies and coast guards around the world because of our expertise. Something for all of our Americans to be proud of. That we are, in fact, the 6th largest navy, quote unquote, in the world. I didn't think that you would know that, most of you. I think back to my father, a radioman, second class Coast Guardsman, who served from 1943 to 1946 aboard 2 all Coast Guard crewed Army supply ships that were in the waters in the Pacific during World War II. Coast Guardsmen manned both the fleet of 83-foot rescue craft in the English Channel and many of the landing craft on the beaches of Normandy on D-Day on June 6, 1944. Many died in the hard-fought effort against Nazi Germany. Others died horrible deaths when their convoy escort cutters were torpedoed and sunk by German U-boats in the North Atlantic during those years, the freezing North Atlantic. In the Pacific, Coast Guardsmen fought bravely and died alongside their Army, Navy, and Marine Corps brethren as they landed troops on more Japanese-held islands than we can ever count. When duty called between these landing missions, Coast Guardsmen always rallied to meet the mission. One of these brave young men was Signalman First Class Douglas Albert Monroe, who enlisted out of Seattle in 1937. I'll wager most, if not all of you, in this auditorium have never heard of that name. Yet the name of Doug Monroe lives large in the vaunted history of not only our service, but the U.S. Marine Corps as well. You see, on September 27, 1942, a battalion of over 500 Marines were facing certain annihilation by the Japanese at Point Cruz on a little-known, at that time, small island called Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands of the South Pacific. By the end of that day, most of them owed the rest of their lives to this extraordinary young man, who had rapidly organized a flotilla of small boats to rescue them off of that awful beach. It was an all-day mission, fraught with danger at every corner. Successfully getting the last of the Marines off to safety, including the fallen, we don't leave our men behind. Doug found himself, unfortunately, in the line of one of the last bursts of Japanese fire that raked across his boat and ultimately killed him. He lived just long enough to be cradled in the arms of his friend that had joined with him in Seattle in 1937 and was there on that boat when he asked, "Did we get them off safely?" And then he took his final breath. This is documented. For his extraordinary and heroic actions that day, the Commandant of the Coast Guard, in conjunction with the Chief of Naval Operations and the Commandant of the Marine Corps, posthumously awarded Doug the nation's highest military honor, the Medal of Honor. The next 4.5 minutes on screen is a heartfelt collection of photos of the life of Douglas Monroe, showing that our fallen heroes were once young men and women just like you in this audience, high school kids who had their whole lives ahead of them. Yet they made decisions to live lives above their own for their country and for their fellow Americans and our way of life. Watch with me now to the touching strains of Enya to get to know this great American. It will not be a time to nod off. Keep awake. I promise you. And Josh, if you can get the lights down up front, or someone can, so that we can see the screen over here.
May it be when darkness falls, your heart will be true. You walk a lonely road. Oh, how far you are from home.
I moved every time I see that one. Every year on September 27th, the United States Marine Corps holds full military honors commemorating Douglas Monroe for what he did to save the lives of their fellow Marines that day. They do this at Headquarters Marine Corps in Washington, D.C., and also at Doug's gravesite in the Laurel Hill Park Cemetery in his hometown of Clay Elum, Washington. I have been there. It's a very solemn and peaceful place, high up in the Cascade Mountains east of Seattle, Washington. It is emblematic of the strong bond that he helped cement between the Marine Corps and the Coast Guard that lives to this day. It is what makes this man so particularly special to us all. And now for the rest of the story. You see, among the 3,471 names emblazoned on the Medal of Honor wall in the Pentagon, a list that began during our American Civil War in 1861, Signalman First Class Douglas Albert Monroe remains to this day the only Coast Guardsman to be so honored. Amid thousands of Coast Guard heroes who have made the ultimate sacrifice both in war and peace since 1790, the name Monroe holds the top place among all of them to us. The Marines know, Coast Guardsmen know, and now you know the rest of the story. God bless Doug Monroe, God bless North Cobb High School, and God bless the great United States of America. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Captain Polk. At this time, as First Sergeant Dickerson makes his way up to the stage to remember our fallen warriors here at North Cobb.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you please rise as we honor the fallen warriors that were here at North Cobb High School? Timothy John O'Keefe, United States Marine Corps. Brian Robert Jones, United States Navy. Doug Gray, United States Navy. Anton J. Holt, United States Air Force. Aaron Hampton Reeves, United States Navy. Sean P. McCloskey, United States Army. And John Patrick Walsh, United States Army. Thank you. You may be seated.
At this time, Dr. K is going to lead the chamber orchestra in Armed Forces Tribute. If you would like to stand when you hear, you may do so. There are many words that stand out today when you talk about a veteran or their families. Hero, dedication, honor, integrity, commitment, sacrifice, and love. What greater love is there than to lay one's life down for one's friends? And I will have to apologize to my father, who served in the Army, Air Corps, and Navy, and my husband, who served in the Army. I am about to quote a Marine. Lieutenant Colonel George Goodson, United States Marine Corps retired, said, "A veteran is someone who at one point wrote a blank check, made it payable to the United States of America for an amount of up to and including their life." That is honor. At this time, we will have a slideshow and song, "God Bless America," composed by Irvin Berlin and the Warriors Men's Chorus, Advanced Women's Chorus, and Chamber Orchestra, conducted by Holly Patella. At this time, our wonderful principal, Mr. Bucky Horton.
Thank you. I had planned to come up here and, do the thank you to everyone for being here, but I wonder, a few minutes ago when I'm sitting there and I'm watching all of our veterans stand up to Your Branches song, I sort of question myself, and I think maybe we need to look at this in a different way. I don't know how well we communicate to you, the students, what this really means. how we put it into perspective for you. Their service, I don't think we always realize what that really means, what they have done for us. When you kind of think about this, let's look at your daily life. You come to a school in a large number of people in one place on a daily basis. There are places in the world you can't do that. There are places in the world that have been taken over by others and education is wiped out. But you get to come and you get to feel safe every day. You get to hold a boyfriend or a girlfriend's hand as you walk through a hallway without thinking much about it. You even get choices at lunch. Some places in the world, you don't even get lunch. You have a breakfast as well. These things aren't always there, and we wouldn't have these things without these men and women. We wouldn't be able to come to places like Friday nights that we always get excited about. And it goes on all around our country, not just here, where that many people come to one location and without thinking about anything other than a football team or the band or just having fun. There's no worries. We're carefree. Those things don't happen without the service of these men and women. And that's what I think you need to think about today is we have ceremonies, and maybe even as a dad I haven't communicated that as well as I should have in my own house. But there's more to it, and we need to make sure that you understand what it really means in your own lives and the importance of that. So it's not just a ceremony we do once a year. It's something you need to think about daily, and you need to appreciate it. So on behalf of North Cobb High School, to all of our veterans here today, and your families who we know have sacrificed, whether it's a spouse or children or your own parents, thank you. Thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts, and thank you for being here.
Thank you to our wonderful chorus and orchestra. If y'all would please take a bow. And our wonderful conductors. And our three gentlemen of honor, Commander, Captain, and First Sergeant. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all, veterans. This concludes our program.